Work session to order. And we have the roll call, please.
Yes, sir. 1 second. Okay. Let's proceed. Get my device to work. Ms. Baker.
Here.
Mr. Cox.
Here.
Mr. Dominic.
Present.
Mr. Epperson.
Here.
Mr. Escaday.
Here.
Mr. Jenkins.
Present.
Mr. Lynn.
Present.
Ms. Lynch. Ms. McCulloch.
Here.
Mr. Pearson.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Thibodeau.
Here.
Have the floor, Mr. President.
Ask Commissioner Thibodeau to lead us in prayer, and Commissioner Epperson in the pledge, please.
Lord, we thank you for all the good things you give us every day. We ask you to give us the wisdom to make wise decisions on behalf of the citizens of Caddo Parish. And we ask all these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Turn and face the flag, render the proper salute. Repeat the pledge in unison.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Before we proceed, I'd like to let anyone know, anyone who would like to address the commission, please fill out one of the cards that are in the foyer. Give it to the commission clerk or someone in administration. Are there any agenda additions? Yes.
I'd like to have an agenda addition added to change the zoning on the Caddo Parish Industrial Park on the remaining acreage from I-1 to R-8. If I may get a second, please.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Epperson, seconded by Commissioner McCullough, that we enlarge the agenda, change the zoning status at Shirley Francis Industrial Park. Any discussion on the motion?
This part of information, this will be in a resolution. It will be asked that the administration be directed to enact that.
All right, any discussion? Please, you ready, Ms. Samuels?
Yes, sir.
Let's vote. Needs unanimous consent. The motion fails. Any other agenda additions? We have a visitor, Dr. Larissa Brown. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Larissa Brown. I work for Goody Clancy in Boston, and I'm the consultant for the Shreveport-Caddo Master Plan. And I thought I just wanted to come back to see you all to give you a little bit of an update on what we've been doing and where we are on the master plan. And also, I wanted to talk to you again about the possibility that we had discussed previously in other occasions when I was here, whether there was some interest in doing a plan for what we're calling sort of the rural Caddo Parish, the area outside of the MPC boundaries. And I believe, Woody, that you did send to all of the commissioners a little memorandum that I made, which has a sort of a prototype scope. Obviously, it would not be the final scope and something that would needs to be discussed. So I just want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing. The master plan is moving apace. We've been doing a lot of work. We had public meetings in March in which we asked people to come and really give their opinions on some of the strategies and actions that we were talking about in the development of the different topic chapters of the master plan. We're working with 6 different working groups made up of citizens from the area who have some kind of knowledge of the particular topic, so that they're not just anybody, they're people who either professionally or because they've been very involved in various kinds of advocacy groups or other kinds of organizations. They know a lot about the topic, and so they're there to help us create these plans on particular issues, the chapters on particular issues. So we've been meeting. We're getting to about the 4th meeting of these groups this week. For a few of them, we'll probably have a 5th meeting because some of the issues are very complicated. But we are moving forward. And then in May, we're going to have another series of open house meetings. We're going to have them in 7 locations around the city, as we did back in the fall when we had meetings at public libraries. And that seemed to B, the kind of format that seems to have worked best in terms of the response we get, people like being able to come at the time, we give them like 2.5 or 3 hours to come. People can drop in. We have a number of exhibits. We have a PowerPoint that's continuing to roll. We ask them to fill out comment forms about what we're showing, and then they can also then engage people in questions and answers about the plan. So we're going to have a series of meetings of this type the week of May 10th. And at those meetings, what we'll really be doing is taking a lot of the information and the developing strategies that have been worked on in these working groups, whether they're about infrastructure or downtown or parks and recreation or transportation, and start to put them together into several different sort of scenarios for the future. So looking at, for the residents of this area, if they're going to talk about the next 20 years, what do they want to see in the next 20 years? What are the potential costs? What could be the benefits? Do you want to sort of make some very aggressive investments in certain things strategically? Are other things less important and they can wait? So this will be an opportunity for people to really start looking at, as we get closer and closer to the final plan, the final land use plan, and the priorities, the high priority issues that people want to make sure become part of the plan. And some of the emerging consensus, I think, that we feel is happening is one thing clearly is that more and more people are becoming very aware, because of some of the things that happened in the very cold winter, for example, that infrastructure is a huge issue in this city, and making sure that the infrastructure is in good condition, that there are huge numbers of repairs that are needed, that there's really a big emphasis and understanding now, I think, that this is something that really has to be taken care of. And people are also understanding that the way the infrastructure is distributed now, that the kind of sprawl model of growth that the city has been following is unsustainable financially. So that makes also looking at infrastructure one of the key issues that people are most interested in. Another thing that's been getting a lot of support is the whole idea of paying attention to downtown and making downtown into a much more lively place where people can really live. And we had one of the members of our team do a market evaluation, and from her work, which was based on sort of a very conservative idea of the potential for the market for residential growth downtown. I mean, her feeling was that within 5 years it could be possible to have 400 units of residential occupancy downtown in terms of the demand that's there. But one of the things that's important, it's not just historic buildings. It's also important to have some new residential units. So that part of it is having that combination of having new product, as they say in the real estate world, as well as the historic buildings. And that's something that can start to bring more people in. And once you have more people living there, you also then begin to get more retail. So that's something also that we've been finding, that there's a lot of support for that. There's a lot of support for taking another look at downtown and figuring out how you can connect all the pieces of downtown more successfully. And then if downtown becomes a much more lively, exciting place, a neighborhood of it on its own, it will also then have an impact on some of the surrounding areas like Ledbetter Heights and Allendale, and there will be a way in which you can grow that vitality and growth into other neighborhoods. Another issue, which is, of course, a key issue, is economic development. We have been talking to the Economic Development Group and to others in the public meetings, and it's clear that, again, there's a very strong understanding and support for education, not simply looking at public education and the necessity to make sure that everybody graduates from high school or ideally gets some kind of post-secondary education, whether it's a certificate or actually going to college. But also, it's really important to focus on workforce development, because this community is not going to be a successful community in the 21st century unless you reduce the disparities, particularly in income and skill levels, that you find between the white and the African-American population. It's important to have support so that everybody can be part of the labor force, which means focusing on things like transportation, social services, and daycare as well. So you can see that part of what we're doing in this plan is taking pieces of a number of different issues and putting them together. So that in order to be successful for neighborhood redevelopment and housing redevelopment, you also have to pay attention to economic development and job creation. And it's really all about this area, whether it's the city of Shreveport or Caddo Parish, really capturing more growth and also attracting more growth, so it can be more successful. Another aspect of the economic development discussion is really the development and more supports for an entrepreneurial environment in this area, where you have people who have great ideas, but they have trouble getting capital, whether they're small business people or maybe they're people looking for venture investors in certain kinds of activities. So finding ways to bring more of that support to this particular area is also a really critical issue, and we have a number of strategies for looking at that. One of them, for example, when we talk to people about the whole issue of the biomedical industry here, which has had, shall we say, a modest success in terms of the number of jobs that it's created. You know, how could it be more successful? Well, one thing is if there would be a campaign to actually endow a research chair at the medical school, that could make a huge amount of difference, because that's what you really need in a community like this. You need somebody whose job it is to run a laboratory, to get grants, to get graduate students, to create the products, do the research, and then have a way to get it commercialized. And there is a path to make that happen. We know what that path is, and so you know, there are certain things that need to be done for that. And then finally, another aspect of the process that's clear that there's an emerging consensus around is the need for better regulation, whether it's code enforcement or zoning. And when I say better, that doesn't necessarily mean more. It means clearer regulations, better standards, a more streamlined way of putting regulations, applying regulations and putting them into effect so that people know what's expected, they know what they have to do, they can get it done pretty quickly, and then if they don't do what is expected, there will be enforcement, and they'll have to answer for that. Because this is something that people in the community really expect. They want to see, there's a whole sense of, they want to have confidence in the kind of regulation that's in fact in place. So those are just a few of the issues. There are a number of different specific strategies and actions that we've been working on. As I say, that in May in particular, we'll have a set of several scenarios with attached sort of actions and specifics, including financial specifics for all of you to look at. And so the other thing I wanted to do before I finish and ask you for any questions, just if you look at this memorandum that I put together, there are just a couple of things that I think that if you in the commission are interested in having us start to look at the rural parish in terms of doing some planning for the rural parish, I think this is a great moment to sort of really start discussing it seriously, because one thing is that we clearly, in the work that we've done already, we have learned a lot about Caddo Parish and the whole sort of context even for the rural parish, because a lot of the economic development statistics, for example, that we've been using are Caddo Parish statistics, so that we know a lot about the trends and the general situation here. We would have to then tease out specifically a little bit more what's happening in the non-metropolitan areas of the parish. Another issue I think that's important for you all to think about is whether in a master plan of this type you'd want to include the smaller municipalities within Caddo Parish. I think this is one thing, particularly when you think about the impacts of the I-49 corridor, which certainly it's my understanding in talking to people, that would be a big focus of a plan of this type, that many of those impacts would be on some of those smaller municipalities. So it makes sense to me in a lot of ways to make sure that they get included in any kind of discussions, in any kind of process. And the other thing is that, in the rural part of the parish, a lot of that the population is in fact the population in some of these municipalities. It's a fairly substantial percentage. So finding a way to include them, whether the commission itself wants to, pay for them to be included, or whether it's something that they can be invited to be part of the process and make some kind of contribution. I think that's something that's definitely worth paying attention to. I put in the memorandum a little bit of language from Louisiana legislation about master plans, comprehensive plans for parishes. The state doesn't prescribe what has to go in them, though it has some general language to that effect. So the question is whether you want to have a full comprehensive plan with all the different elements that normally go into it, or if you do want to just concentrate on several issues and really focus more on them. A couple of other things on page 3. I included some information, first talking about the fact that we've completed a lot of this context work for Caddo Parish. That's going to obviously be a benefit to you in terms of the work that we've already done. Also, I added some information about a couple of corridor planning projects that Goody Clancy has done recently in other parts of the country, and although they happen to be about trains, in fact, there's a certain similarity in the sense that trains have designated stops, highways, interstates have interchanges and have limited access. So the whole idea of what happens at those points is an important issue for any community. And so looking at, what you want to have happen around those interchanges, what you want to do about directing the kind of growth you'd like to see there, what it should look like, how it can be beneficial to you, also how to make sure that you don't have impacts that you don't want, which, many times people think of a corridor as just a very narrow area, but in fact, the impact sometimes can go way beyond, a few miles on either side. And so that's something really to be looked at. And certainly one of these projects that we did in southeastern Massachusetts, we actually lived in an area of over 300,000 people, and it was like 31 municipalities, because that was really the area in which the potential impacts could take place. So these are some of the things that we've been doing recently. We also have experience in large-scale open space planning, which I know is something also that I've heard that many people have said could be a part of a planning project, looking at the park and open space system here. I think that, as you are going to get the highway coming through, there will be potential impacts of that. And you want to think about what are the parts of this parish, the rural parts of the parish, that you want to make sure retain natural character. Are there special places that you want to make sure remain special natural places? I'm actually staying a little longer this weekend so I can go to Caddo Lake. So I think it sounds like a fascinating place, but I also noticed that Caddo Lake, most of what is sort of the touristic part is all in Texas. How come it's not in Caddo Parish? When you just go online looking for, how do I get there? How do I get someone to take me around? All the information almost is from Texas and not from Louisiana. So that could be a potential also tourist benefit to you as well. So, open space planning could be part of it. We also do have some experience in planning for smaller communities, and particularly for smaller communities that are experiencing growth impacts. So this is something that, I've done plans for communities that are as small as 2,500 people to sort of more suburban, exurban communities of 50,000 or so, which is pretty much the population that we're talking about here. So this is something that we do have experience with, and, what I'm suggesting in this memorandum is that if the commission decides that you are interested in pursuing this possibility, I think the most efficient way for us to have a discussion is if you were to designate 2 or 3 people from your membership of the subcommittee to start negotiating in detail with us about what you want to see in the plan, what the scope should be. And it's only through that can I really then come up with a budget. When I know what you want, what you're looking for, then we can negotiate a budget and then, see whether that's where you want to go. And there's no obligation there. It's just, I think, the most efficient way to do it, rather than trying to do it in a context like this with all of you in the meeting. So those are just some of the points that I wanted to make. And this, as I said, what you see here is an example of what a scope of services would look like. The details obviously would be something that you all would want to work out with us. So I will stop now, and perhaps somebody has some questions, either about the progress of the present master plan, or any ideas that you have, or any questions you have about the idea of doing a rural master plan.
Commissioner Dominic, I just have a few questions. Trying to keep an open mind about this, even though I'm not fully sold on the, especially on the completely parish-wide type of planning, but I do understand with the interchanges in I-49 that there's going to be growth. I-49's coming along pretty good. When you say to include the municipalities, obviously we're going to be included, are you saying that they need to be that there needs to be planning within the municipalities also? I mean, planning or zoning within the different municipalities? I mean, obviously, we're going to include them and ask if they want to be a part, because I think that they're going to have a major say-so, but I'm unclear.
I wasn't completely clear whether, when people were talking about doing the rural parish, whether that meant the smaller municipalities actually, it would only be the unincorporated areas.
Right.
So I think that, the thing would be then is to really talk to them about what they see their needs as being, and I think that then the question would be is, as you look at the impacts on these communities, in some cases, those that do have zoning might want to make some changes, and you can make recommendations. But I just brought it up because I wasn't sure how it was being conceptualized here, whether they would be included or not, or whether you would want to pay for them or have them pay, or
I think
all those things.
the ones on Highway 71, at least in the northern part of the parish, I don't think any of them do have zoning, if I remember correctly. One thing you said was kind of interesting. You said we could do this and concentrate on issues. Talking about, like, for example, noise issues, businesses that create, things that are loud, mobile homes. What are you talking about? You said issues. Does that make sense to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about more specific issues than I had in mind, but I think that what I had in mind is, instead of doing, a full sort of comprehensive plan for the area, really to just find out from you and others in the community exactly the kinds of things that were of most concern, and then we could talk about also what we think are the kinds of things that you should be thinking about and worrying about in terms of the impacts of the highway. But it's really, it's really just about tailoring the project to you and your needs, whatever the communities in so that if there are issues that you're experiencing about noise or, impacts of certain kinds of activities on other residents, I mean, those are certainly things that we can look at. I mean, it's an interesting question, because in rural areas, that's a very common issue, particularly when people move into rural areas who are not actually engaged in a rural economic pursuit. People who move out, they think, oh, it's wonderful, I'm living in the country. But then they find out they don't like the smells of the farms, and the farmer gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning and is running his machinery, or they find out that means there's a gravel pit down the road and, the truck's going by all the time. So these are issues that are common all over the country, particularly as you start to have these impacts where people want to move out into the countryside, and I think it would be great to have their 10 acres or whatnot, or a hobby farm. But there are also people who are, who own the land and are making a living from it, and there are certain kinds of conflicts that result. So those are things that we certainly would be able to talk about. So we could do a plan. I mean, if we're doing a corridor plan, there are a number of different issues that we'd have to sort of integrate to be able to do that right. So that when looking at the impacts of the corridor plan, because I-49 can have all kinds of impacts. It'll obviously have impacts right around the interchanges, but it also could have impacts in bringing more people out to live in the rural parts of the county, because the parish, because they'll think it's a closer drive into Shreveport, or even to other places. So that could be a housing impact, or a residential development impact. But what I was also thinking is, for example, if you just want a corridor plan and an open space plan, we could do that. So it's really up to you.
Okay. I appreciate you coming here today. The last time we talked, these were some of the issues that I had, concerning, our experience and things like that. So the memorandum, I think, I haven't had a chance to read it all, but I appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
Well, and I guess the other thing I would just say to that is, in terms of, I know that you also want to know, in terms of our experience in the rural South, which I have to say we have experience in big regions and rural areas, though not specifically in the South. And part of what you'll see in the memorandum, too, is that as we talk about the specifics of what you would like us to do, that's also where we would seek out, if we need sort of technical expertise on the team that we don't have, then we go find that. If it makes sense, for example, to have somebody from the LSU Ag Center be part of our team. We're perfectly okay with that, and would be happy to do something like that. So,
thank you. Anyone else?
I have a couple of questions. I understand that, your product is not complete, but I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about things you touched on them.
Sure.
And you touched on them, so obviously you've got some data that could support, a conclusion, hopefully. When you're talking about people talking about the ordinances, the property standards, and I get the gist of what you said is that they do not feel like local government is remiss in their duty in having things that protect property standards and that speak to these ordinances. Are you saying that they don't feel necessarily that they are being enforced as uniformly as they would like to see? Is that the conclusion?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. To some degree, people feel that they're not being enforced, or they don't fully understand what the process is. I in my career at one point worked for a municipal government, and it was clear that sometimes there are things that governments have to pay attention to that people aren't aware of. There are legal constraints on what they can do. But I think that making regulations clearer and more transparent, and making it clear why they are there is valuable, and that's one thing. People also do feel, we've been hearing in some of our discussions, there are certain kinds of things that people feel often they don't get sufficient, code enforcement, or that when it's enforced, it goes to the courts and people are let off. There are a whole series of issues like that. And then one of the things that there's been a lot of discussion about is the whole question of having a better set of standards for development, so neighborhoods where people feel more confident that there won't be development that comes near them that will be deleterious to their quality of life. And how do you do that? How do you make sure also that there's, proper ability to have the kinds of commercial industrial development that every community needs, and, to organize that in such a way, again, that the regulations are clear, they're transparent, everybody understands them, and then they get applied in a way that can be, in many cases, much more streamlined than it is now. Because if you have regulations that everybody can ultimately agree on and write down, and people know what they have to produce in terms of their plans, then it's less likely you'll have to have long discussions about what's allowed and what's not, and all these kinds of negotiations, because they'll know what they need to do, and then they can get approved, and that's so that streamlines the whole process.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing you commented on biomed, I think the voters of this parish approved a tax many years ago for that.
Yeah.
And I conclude from your statement that not necessarily got what you would consider an extraordinary return on investment on that. Is that the conclusion that you've?
Yes, our data is that the center has produced, it's produced about 300 jobs, which is not terrible, but not that great. And so the question is, how can we actually be more effective in taking advantage of the healthcare assets and pharmaceutical companies that are here, and the investment that's already been made, so that it can be more successful. And it's partially an educational issue, it's partially a venture capital issue. So there are, again, a whole series of things that have to be put together to make it work.
I assume during this process you have worked with the people over there?
Sure, yeah.
And I guess in conclusion, you'll have a more in-depth, detailed analysis of what you found there and what you think that they may need to do?
Yes. There are various strategies being
put you on the hot seat today. I got enough. That's anyone else?
It's warming up.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we have the administration report. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. President Escudé, Commissioners, good afternoon. We have a few updates we'd like to give you. We'd like to give you an update on the grant we received. So, Mr. Todd Hopkins, would you come forward and update us quickly, please?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. In January, the Police Service Department applied for a Louisiana Road Safety Program grant. And what we were going to do with this grant was to perform road safety departure signing upgrades. And we requested $16,000. It is our understanding that we have been approved, and that although I have not seen the number yet, it's my understanding that $16,000 was the approval amount. And what we will do with this, we have taken 6 roads, the Barron Road, Bostwick Road, Elysian Fields Road, Bell Lake Road, Linwood Avenue, and Murtis, Texas Line Road. And we're going to redo all 6 of those roads, the signing. We will take down the signing at this time, the current signing, which is engineer grade signs, engineer grade. And we will replace that with new high-intensity prismatic signs. It's a newer paper. It's a higher candle paper that when you're driving, you can see a little better. They keep talking about the graying of our community. I guess I'm starting to be one of those too as I get older. But it helps at nighttime with the driving on, when we talk about roadway departures, people that don't actually have accidents, but they leave the road and come back on the road in curves and in different areas of our roads. Those 6 roads were looked at, and we felt like those 6 roads would be the best to do at this time. So we were approved, and as soon as the agreement gets here, we'll sign that. It'll take us we believe approximately 8 months to do this project, and then hopefully somewhere along the way we'll do another grant for some more. There's one other person that needs to be recognized, because I didn't do this by myself. This actually came about because Mr. Ward was in the right place at the right time, I guess, and he brought it to Fleet Services for us to do, so it was actually a kind of a joint effort. He looked at it originally and thought it fit good over here with us, so we appreciate that. Question?
Yeah. You got it.
Thanks, Todd.
The next person up is the oil and gas update from Mr. Tim Weaver.
Good camera shot.
I guess all y'all are aware that the April 16th sale, we had about 165 plus acres that brought in about $1.3 million. With 25% royalty. We had 108 acres that didn't receive a bid. The person that nominated the bid just said his client had changed his mind. We had, they were all in like District 9, 10, 11, and 12 in the southern portions of the parish. City of Shreveport, they had 87 acres that they brought in $834,000. And the school board, they had a minimum bid of $10,000 on their tract, which received no bids. And our minimum was set at $5,000. We have our royalty payments for last month were $226,000, which comprised about 85% of that comprised of 2 wells near Eddie Jones Park. Also, we have 9.5 acres coming up in next month's sale, and probably in July we have a couple more tracts, but most of the rest of our tracts will be small tracts and not the large tracts that we see. So if y'all got any questions, I'll try to answer.
Keep that money coming. Keep that money coming. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Commissioners, this is one thing I want to emphasize to you all, that the large tracts of land that we have is just about all leased out. So we'll have some marginal leases from henceforward. And the rest of the proceeds will come from the royalty payments we receive when those wells go into production. Just have an update on the Floodplain Managers Conference. Mr. Demeje, who is the president for the State Association of Floodplain Managers.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mr. Wilson asks if I would give you an update on the conference that will be held next week with the Holiday Inn downtown. This is the 27th Annual Louisiana Floodplain Managers Conference, which is a prelude to the Association of State Floodplain Managers, which is a national organization. The conference will begin on April 28th through April 30th, but on the morning of the 28th, they will be having a golf tournament at Old Oaks Golf Course over in Bossier. Also, that afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, we'll be having a welcoming address to conference attendees by our own Commission President, Mr. John Escaday, and hopefully we will also have Commissioner, not Commissioner, but Mayor Glover will also be there. As of yesterday, we have approximately 135 conference attendees that are coming in. And the people that are attending this conference are professional engineers, land surveyors, lenders, insurance agents, local, state, and federal officials. We'll be having members from FEMA Region 6 coming in, from FEMA's headquarters coming in from Washington. We will have state NFIP coordinators coming in from Baton Rouge. And so we have a wide variety of people that are going to be attending this conference. Plus, most of them are bringing their families and planning on staying through the weekend.
What day is that?
That's April 28th through April 30th. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Also, one extra note, as of last month, I was the only certified floodplain manager in Northwest Louisiana. The closest other floodplain managers were in Monroe and in Natchitoches, and then you had to go to Arkansas to find one. but we now have a second floodplain manager in Caddo Parish, Mr. Tim Weaver.
Hey, Timmy!
And this is a national certification, which is good in all 50 states, and we also have, with the national, we have people from 8 different countries that attend the national conference every year trying to get that certification. And in our state conference, we will be issuing the 3-hour test at the end of the conference on Friday. And that's it.
Anyone have any questions for James? Thank you.
One last thing, the conference is open for anyone that would like to come in. If any of the commissioners were interested in attending, please see me and I'll give you all the information that you need.
Thank you. Got to mention the speaker.
Our keynote speaker for the luncheon is our own parish administrator, Mr. Woody Wilson.
Thank you, James.
Wait a minute, what about the golf? Can we play golf? Do we have to go see him, then go play golf?
No, sir, if you're interested in only playing golf, see me and I will give you the details on it. The golf tournament will start about 7 o'clock Wednesday morning.
On what day, is it?
The 28th, Wednesday. And Mr. Lucky
He's playing golf.
is organizing a team from Caddo Parish. Last time the conference came, Commissioner Pearson played with him, and I think he won the longest ball.
Didn't get a prize, though.
You got a shirt, sir.
Can't get it long no more, boy.
That's part of graying, sir.
Obviously do not have the resources to pay a keynote speaker. Have somebody brought in, is that correct?
So I just work there.
James, tell him who the original keynote speaker was supposed to be.
The original keynote speaker, we were trying to get David Marstead, head of FEMA, and then our alternate was going to be Senator Vitter.
Well, you know, shoot for the moon, sometimes you're lucky just to get, you know, for another year, baby.
No, I just work here.
The galaxy,
Yes, sir. We have Ms. Burns have an announcement on another conference that's going to be held here.
Lynn had a question. Didn't say or not.
It's okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. On Friday, April the 30th, the Caddo Parish Juvenile Detention Center will host the regional conference for the Louisiana Juvenile Detention Association here in Shreveport from 8:30 in the morning to 4 that afternoon. The conference facilitators will be Lieutenant John Forcade on victim notification from the Caddo Sheriff's Office, and then also Sergeant Pamiko Pineset on Prison Rape Elimination Act, PREA, also from the Caddo Sheriff's Office. Any questions?
Is Woody speaking at that one, too?
No, he's not speaking at that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Hey, Commissioners, this Thursday, you'll be receiving from the staff the revenue report as well as the travel expense report pursuant to the charter. Also, I just want to remind you all the election is coming up May 1st, and President Escudé, along with some staff members, will be going to the editorial board on Wednesday at 1:30 to talk to the Times editor. And there was an article that appeared in the Saturday Times talking about the renewals. We had 3 renewals: courthouse, health service, and juvenile justice and detention renewal will be coming up on the 1st on the ballot. There's 10-year renewals. So we appreciate if you can encourage your constituents to support that. We'll be going out to Broadmoor Presbyterian Neighborhood Association along with President Escudé to talk to the King Craft Group about the upcoming election of the ballot on May 1st. So we would like to have any invite we can. The staff will be working on putting together a little informational handout, put in libraries and other places that we go to try to get the word out. It's just a renewal. So it's not a new tax. So we appreciate your support in that endeavor. And we'll have a brief update on the legislative bill tracking this coming Thursday. I don't want to emphasize brief, so it wouldn't be as extensive as the last time because that was the first time we appeared before you all on those issues. And that concludes my report, sir. Pardon me?
Charles must not be giving it because he said brave, so.
Oh, he's giving it. But he's going to be brief. Anyway, that concludes my report for the day, unless you have any questions for me.
Quick question, rumors are flying again about General Motors, about meetings coming in with, groups that have been put together. Could you pass word on to Mr. Eby, who is out there?
Eby.
Yes, or anybody that's out there? Were you aware of any of this that was written in the paper this past week? About the group of investors that were coming in, or any of this stuff?
I saw it at the Chicago group.
Yes.
Yes, sir, I heard it in the media.
Okay.
Hadn't got any correspondence on it.
Over the years, and this is one of my pet peeves, I mean, we'd love to see General Motors stay, or the plant stay open, no matter who it is, but unless they understand that Caddo Parish is a player in this, and unless they start talking to us before they start talking to investment groups or something like that, and make a phone call, courtesy phone call to us, that would be more than appreciated, and I assume Mr. Eby or whoever's out there can let us have that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Cox, in response to your request earlier today,
Yes.
I did call that number,
Yes.
and I was the only one on the call. So, and I tried several times, so we called the mayor's office, and they were unaware of that taking place today.
Okay.
So apparently the day is wrong, so we are going to try to find out the correct date.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sir.
Mr. Jefferson?
I too had a concern relative to this situation. In light of the situation relative to the vehicle plant that's supposedly locating in the old guide facility in Ouachita Parish, that doesn't seem to be going well, and I was hoping that the administration could reinforce what we have here from General Motors. Number one, by maybe refreshing this resolution with a cover letter to our state legislators, the Louisiana Department of Economic Development in Baton Rouge, which I'm sure they are aware of. And maybe at some point in time, we need to do some PR to let everyone know exactly where General Motors is located and who they need to deal with. That does not seem to have been articulated. What I've noticed the last few years I've been here, you know, it appears as though everybody thinking it's Shreveport, you know, but all that comes basically under us, but we aren't articulating that. We are not aggressively getting out the word that, hey, if you want to talk about that plant, you need to come, you need to see us.
Yes, sir.
And I think we need to be a little bit more aggressive, and I would hope that we would, maybe we could get a cover letter from the administration with a copy of the resolution, which I got a call today, somebody wanted me to track a resolution relative to what the city council did. I said, yeah, we did a resolution May 20th relative to this plan. I said, they might want to track what we're doing. I said, you need to deal with us.
Right, that's correct, sir.
You know?
I agree.
So, I think we need to be more forceful. We need to be more aggressive in Baton Rouge. We need to refresh all of our legislative delegates in Baton Rouge with new copies of this resolution with a strong cover letter from this body that this is where you need to go to talk in relation to General Motors.
Sure, will do.
All right, Mr. Wilson, you have anything else?
No, sir. Close my report, sir.
All right, very good. Next we'll move to communication and reports. Commissioner Efferson.
Occasion for it. Withdraw this from the agenda.
All right, Commissioner Thibodeau.
Well, as some of you may know, there was an incident with Exco in the southern part of the parish. It's basically south of Southern Coast. And to make a simple explanation, which is the only kind I know how to make, is that there was gas that was coming out of the well, and when you're drilling a well, the gas is not supposed to be coming up. And it got into the air, and there are monitors around the well itself as they drill it, and it was determined that the amount of gas was too high that was getting in the air, so they shut the drilling down, and they have cemented it, I think, down a couple thousand feet. There's also a problem with the aquifer, with the Wilcox aquifer. There seems that there was some natural gas in the aquifer itself, and so there was a concern with those people who are on water wells in the area. There were 45 homes that were evacuated. Initially, they were evacuated for the air, but now they're also being evacuated for water. People are going to be let back in later today, to go in and get medications or whatever they need to get out of their house, their animals or whatever, but they would be told to leave the water off and not to do anything that would bring about a spark of any kind. Now, the levels at this point in the water, from what I understand, are not high enough to be explosive, but since there is, the DEQ doesn't seem to know for sure exactly, where the entry port of this natural gas is that's coming into the aquifer. So until they can determine that, they're, to be safe, they're asking people not to use the water, and certainly not to do anything that would cause an explosion of any kind, in case that gas ever got too high. Right now, it's not to that level. The sheriff's department, the sheriff basically is heading this up in the parish. They have plenty of people out there to be sure that it's as safe as it can be. There was a meeting held today at 1 o'clock with representatives from every ABC entity that you can think of, the EQ, everybody was there. The only ones that weren't there were the ones that should have been there, and that was Department of Natural Resources were not there, and EXCO finally showed up. And so there was a large contingent of people, but EXCO is working with all the different agencies. They're trying to solve the problem. And there'll be another meeting at 6 o'clock tonight of all the persons that are involved in this to determine and get more information on the testing that's been done between 2 and 6. The DEQ is out testing the water supply, and what they're doing is they're going from the closest place to the well where they know there's a problem, and they're moving out so they can see how far they find a level of natural gas in the water. So at this point in time, there's a lot of testing going on, and hopefully there'll be more information tonight. And I'm sure that the sheriff will be doing updates a couple times a day in order to keep people aware of what's going on. One of my major concerns was that the commission just came out with an ordinance not long ago, and I called Woody I accidentally found out about it, and it all started last night. I just accidentally found out about it. I called Woody around noon, and he had not been told about it yet, and evidently no one in the parish knew about it. I went to the meeting at 1 o'clock because I accidentally heard about the meeting, because I wanted to find out what was going on. And so I believe we will have somebody there from the parish tonight, and hopefully that person will be able to follow through until this is all cleared up. So right now, there's just a lot of testing being done by all the different agencies, bringing all information together, and the next meeting is at 6 o'clock tonight at Station 22, which is on Southern Loop. That's the new fire station on Southern Loop. And that's where it is now.
Commissioner Caddo, just to comment on what you said, I got a phone call from the sheriff about an hour ago, and he did apologize and said, all this is very new to them, and that they dropped the ball in informing us in the parish, and that wouldn't happen again, and hopes we understand. Commissioner Epperson?
I had a concern, I think, maybe a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Weaver, you may be familiar with it. I know I emailed Mr. Glass, and I think I may have CC'd you, and I hope I CC'd Ms. Samuels, because I'd like for her to get a copy. One of my constituents up around where I think it's EXCO is drilling a well, had a concern about the discoloration in the order. Do you recall that?
Yeah, the one on, was that off the South Lake Shore?
Right, So could you pull that email, and will we have someone there and see if there's some similarity or some relief that they may have too?
Yes, sir. We can, we turned that over to the DNR, but on that also, That well from the well that she was talking about was 3,000 feet away. But
But I mean, all I'm saying is, you know, you never know until you take it over there, at least have somebody to,
we'll follow up on that and get back with you.
all right, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Anybody here from the public who would like to address the commission at this time? Okay, old business, any old business?
Have
No.
none on the agenda, sir.
New business.
4978, authorize administrator to execute easement right-of-way agreement with Louisiana Midstream Gas, gas pipeline. Thursday Boulevard area.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Epperson, seconded by Commissioner Dominic, to move to Thursday. Is there any discussion on this motion? Please vote. That passes. Next item, please. Mr. McCullough, do you want to vote? You want to vote? Are you yes? She's yes.
Yeah, I did vote.
Okay. Next, please.
Resolution 29 urges the legislature to reject Senate Bill 100 relative to the parochial employees retirement system.
So moved. Moved by Commissioner Pearson, seconded by Ms. Baker. Any discussion on this motion?
Yeah, just briefly, if I can, make sure that we all understand this is just a piece of legislation, but this legislation will change the retirement procedure that would be effective immediately for our employees who were hired under the 3-year plan, which means that you get paid, your retirement is calculated on your best 3 years, to a system that would calculate your best 5 years. And a lot of our employees would be affected adversely to it. A lot of employees across the state would be adversely affected if it went to a 5-year calculation that would not be beneficial to them. We aren't opposed to, there's already, I think, a bill, Charles, that we are under that has the new hirees under the 5-year plan. But this bill particularly would affect those that are currently employed and who were employed under the system that required the top 3 years as a calculation. So we're just hoping that we're going to pass a resolution opposing this. The State Police Jury Association is opposing it as well, and I'm sure Charles and others would continue to monitor this piece of legislation.
Anyone else? Vote to move to Thursday, please. That passes. Next item, please.
Resolution number 30 amends your rules and bylaws.
Move to Thursday.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Cox and seconded by Ms. Baker to move to Thursday. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, let's vote, please. Move to Thursday. Next item.
Authorize commissioners to attend the NOBCO Economic Development Conference.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Pearson, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. Move to Thursday. Is there any discussion on the motion? Who's all going? Hold on. You made the motion. Do you want to speak?
No.
Second? You want to speak? Then we have Commissioner Thibodeau.
That was my question, who's going?
I'm going, but the commission's not going to pay for mine.
I intend
You the only one going?
No, I intend
No,
Are you going?
Yeah.
I really need to go because I'm on the executive board committee.
I'm not sure. I think Commissioner Lynch is going.
Oh, if two or more gather, she's going.
In whoever's name. In whoever's name.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
I'm sure she's watching this on the computer, too.
Somebody gave her a computer? Good, you can get the phone call tonight. Mr. Cox.
I'm done.
It's done? Okay. Any other discussion? Vote to move to Thursday. That moves to Thursday. Next item, please.
Accept the Louisiana Compliance Questionnaire required by the Legislative Auditor's Office.
Move to Thursday. Moved by Commissioner Dominic. Second. Seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. Is there any discussion on this motion? Vote, please. That passes. Thank you. Next item.
Special resolution for Dr. Ricky Moore, pastor Sunrise Baptist Church.
Move to Thursday.
Moved by Commissioner Jenkins, seconded by Commissioner McCullough. Any discussion on the motion? Vote, please. Next, we have our consent agenda. That is it. We're adjourned.
I know, you know.